you're special, your problems are not. Ever since my coach has told me those words, I've been thinking about it for the longest. And I came to the conclusion that all struggles and problems that you face in life have to be embraced in order to live a fulfilling life. But in order for this to happen, you have to follow a set of sequence blocks, this triangle here. You have to start with a level of self-awareness because you have to be aware that there's something out there, that there's more to yourself, more to the world, in order for you to want to explore it, in order for you to want to discover it, understand it, and then accept or love it, and then transform what you have found. Just as my personal experience of struggling with lying led to me realizing that there is much more to life than deceit and deception, it sparked my awareness that living an honest and authentic life was essential for personal growth and fulfillment. You have to start with a level of self-awareness, because out of sight, out of mind. Because if you aren't aware, you won't care. If you aren't realizing that there's something going between me and my relationship and myself that I have never known, seen before, or has gotten messed up in my life through trauma experiences and in relationships, or what I've been taught growing up. For me, overcoming the struggle with lying required me to acknowledge the fact that this problem was within myself. It was because I didn't like something about myself. It wasn't fulfilling to me in the state of being as a person. Now that you're aware that there's something there, you start questioning, exploring the gray areas of the map. It's open-minded because you don't know what you're discovering, what you're looking for, and you just don't know exactly what you're gonna find. All you're doing is moving. Just as I began questioning myself about why I was addicted to lying, when realizing this, it was the first step to self-mastery, as I became aware of my faults. I started to explore this by asking questions such as, why am I addicted to lying? What is the origin of this behavior? And how has it impacted my relationships and self-image? As you explore now, you'll now discover the underlying truth. In my case, I realized it actually was coming from a simple truth that my lying stemmed from a fear of vulnerability and a desire to protect myself from the judgment and consequences. You start finding out things about yourself, a hard truth that you might be avoiding. A lot of this is going to be complicated. However, in order to do so, you must free yourself authentically and holistically. You can't free yourself through the eyes of others. Often, when growing up, we're products of our environment. We pass on stories from our fathers, dads, cousins, aunts, sisters, friends. We're a blank slate. And often, sometimes people pick up stuff like racism, homophobia, and all different types of stuff. Because just as a blank slate, you just perceive, you're open-minded. You only take up things you only see things as they're not supposed to be. Point being, you don't understand what you have just discovered. Yet you just know that you discovered this something. And now the understanding part is the nitty-gritty of what you just discovered. Take it now from a personal standpoint. As you look into your relationship with yourself and make sense and understanding of what you just discovered, you now begin to say, what is it about myself, what I have discovered, that I've been taught to view in a certain way? For instance, I had to confront the societal norms and influences that shape my perception of lying and its consequences. I say this to connect to the pyramid because once you begin to understand yourself, once you begin to understand yourself, you start to learn to view it in a holistic way. Because there are sides of yourself that you've been neglecting all of your life, because maybe you were ashamed of it, which was probably also beneath your identity of what you want to be or what you choose to be, because that's who you're supposed to be to those around you. Just as I had to come in terms with the fact that my struggle of lying wasn't just a character flaw, but stemmed from the deep-rooted fears and insecurities. As a 17-year-old African boy, it's certain things that are attached to this identity. So now I have to say, who am I outside of all of these attachments? Who do I decide who I am? Who do I understand myself to be? You have to be aware and separate these things, because there comes a time in life where if you can't separate these things, your reasoning, you can never achieve self-love. Each level is connected to the one behind it in order for a reason. This self-love will come from the fact that you learn to accept yourself holistically. And I keep repeating this word holistically because you have to accept everything you are. Your flaws, your desires, your habits, the good, the bad, what you conceptualize as good or bad. Why do you conceptualize it as good or bad, and to who? And who taught you that this is good or bad? And what are the reasons and where are they coming from? And you see, when you start to love yourself, accept yourself as you are directly as that, you cannot do that without understanding who you are, because there is no foundation. You will just be pretending, oh, I think I love myself because this is what society supports. This is what people think is good. You will continue playing this game to view yourself through the eyes of others. And you will only be as good as you think you can be, but you will never be as good as you choose to be. You will never genuinely be yourself. The key part in the whole understanding, discovery, and exploration is that you begin to see that there are things which are separating you from yourself, which have been fed into your mind. There are things in your head which have been separated in your mind. And the hardest part is, how attached are you to these specific things? It could be an identity. It could be being a thug. It could be being sexy, handsome. It could be being cool. It could be being smart. It could be being a good son, daughter, mother, father. You can be an abundance of just tightly woven strings, of puppet strings, of where you are in life, and you don't even understand why you're miserable. Because you are being puppeteered, and all these strings are in you as a person. You're being told to and pulled in so many directions, and you're so used to playing this role that you don't realize how deeply layered the strings are, and why your self of sense is so miserable, and why you're so unhappy, and why you don't love your life, and why no matter what you do, you just don't feel happy. You begin to create addictions. And when I say the word addictions, I don't mean to be judgmental. When it comes to addictions, it could be anything. Shopping, sex, relationships, alcohols. Addictions lead life. Everyone has addiction. You need to choose your addiction. What is your addiction? You need to choose an addiction which is fulfilling and not satisfying, which is fulfilling and not fun, which is fulfilling and doesn't have its highs and lows. And I make this distinction because my addiction is fulfilling. My addiction feeds my soul. I would not be able to live without my addiction. I give you another word for this addiction. Some people like to call it a purpose to life, a purpose of living. This addiction these addictions that make you feel high and low will have you repeatedly do them or use them, because your brain gets used to this feeling of this high, and that's where you get the addiction from. And when you're living your life with no fulfillment, this will not sustain you, which does not sustain you spiritually, mentally, and intellectually. We look for these addictions, which are fun, satisfying, and gives that high, because our normal bar is so low that when we take this high, it distracts us. This high is so high compared to our norm that when we come back down, we want to get that high again. The long-term solution is not to just reuse and get this high. Don't think about a drug, because addiction can be beautiful because of what you choose to make it. It could be fulfilling to you rather than just this high and low. You learn to hit the problem at its core, instead of chasing these highs and lows, but chasing freedom, but chasing a sense of fulfillment, a sense of normal state of being, where you're content and feel good. I use my addiction for example. I like to connect with people on a deeper spiritual way. I get my fulfillment from this because I know in people's normal daily lives, they get told what they are, their expectations from life. And if I can sort of hit that light deeply rooted inside of them, they can see a side of themselves which they're not used to. I don't know anything about you guys, your age, ethnicity, name, but I know I'm talking with you. I'm talking to the part of you that is you, the part of you that makes you feel founded and embraces the strength. I get this fulfillment from doing so, and I say this to say, apart from you, I say this to say that this is a part of you that you can get addicted to in being in tune with yourself. You're completely different to me. Once you start to realize your strengths and weaknesses, you realize you were made like this for a reason greater than yourself. The self-love and acceptance leads to self-transformation. Because now that you accept who you are yourself, the next thing is to become addicted to this purpose and this impact or the goal that you have. For my instance, it required a conscious effort to align myself to the person I wanted to be and let go of the comfort zones that kept me stuck in a cycle of deceit. You start to realize what you want to be and who you are separate things. In order to become what you want to be, you have to align yourself with that. In order to do what you want to do and have what you want to have, you need to start with a vision of who you want to be. So then you realize, what is it about myself I have to transform? What is it about myself I have to change in order to align and become more like what I want to be? To then say, I have to stop doing this and do more of that. I have to do less of this and do more of that. Because I have to transform. I have to change. I wish to say this part is simple, but it's probably the hardest part. Because as humans we have immunity to change ourselves, because of our comfort zones and what we consider safe. But what you have to do is consciously change what you consider safe and comfortable. Before I transformed, I went into the level of change in order to be what I needed to be, in order to have what I wanted to have, and in order to do what I needed to do. I had my comfort zones that made me live a life in confines and lying and deception. Being mediocre was just enough, was just the level I was set on, comfortable staying. Because it didn't demand more from myself, it didn't push me to do anything more. It didn't push me to wake up early in the morning. It didn't push me to stay up later up in the night. It didn't push me to do all of these hard things on myself because it was comfortable, it was safe, I felt good. However, I had to change my whole entire sense of what comfortable and safety is. Because now, guess what? I'm uncomfortable being lazy. I'm uncomfortable sitting down and laying down. And I'm wasting my time on Instagram, scrolling. Sometimes I'll just be lying down watching a video on my phone and ask myself, why am I watching this video? Why am I just wondrously wasting my time on my phone? You have to create the norm of create the norm of what comfort is for you, or else your body and your mind will decide it for you. I know what it takes in order to be the kind of person I need to be, and I cannot be the person who just scrolls wondrously and wastes their time. I need to be the person who uses their time. If you do not decide what comfort is for you, it will be decided for you. When you start learning this relationship with you, in this level of lostness and knowing what you do, and you still say, you know what, I'm going to figure it out. You know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start and practice. And this habit, this trust in yourself, you start to feel good. You start to do things that you've never tried before. And then you realize, I figured it out before. I've made through this before. I handled it before. So this greater challenge should be showed me something I haven't seen in myself. Because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Sounds motivational. But it's real. Because how will you know you can't do something if you never try to do it? You only know you can do it after you reach the other end. Life comes in from the inside and not from the outside. What you say, what you do, comes from the inside. And we spend so much time taking it from the outside. What will people say? What will people do? How will people react? And we're experiencing a world from the outside. You're looking for approval from people. And guess what? You could be the perfect human specimen, but people would still have something to comment about you. People would still have something negative to say about you. And that's why you have to consciously decide on the state where you're happy. And you can accept yourself for that transformation, and then this process reaches to self-mastery. You got to learn it. You got to take your time and find yourself before you try to find yourself in others. And this commences my speech.